for the year 31st December 2017. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Gobri.
Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Ibrahim Gobir from Sokoto East. I move that the report of the Committee on Communications, I second that the report of the Committee on Communications on the Universal Service Provision Fund, USPF, budget proposal for the year ending 31st December 2017. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Communications on the Universal Service Provision Fund, USPF, budget proposal for the year 31st December 2017. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Gilbert Najik, please present your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I hereby adopt the report of the Committee on Communication as stated in the report, Mr. President, because we have our national budget to consider, sir. Thank you, sir.
Senator Sabi Abdullahi.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I just want to note, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, that in a very long while, I've not seen a committee where all members have endorsed. Except one. And so this definitely tells me that they have concurred. They have concurred and they've done a very good job. I think we should just put the question and approve this budget. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, if there are no other comments, let me put the questions on the recommendation. Recommendation A, it is hereby recommended that the sum of 9,751,262,000 naira 61 kobo only be approved as the Universal Service Provision Funds 2017 budget. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senate also recommend that the budget should be allowed to run till 30th June 2018. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, please. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the sixth and last order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Appropriation on the 2018 Appropriation Bill. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid yesterday, Tuesday, the 15th of May 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite very distinguished Senator Danjuma Goje, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Senator Danjuma Goje.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Mohammed Danjuma Goje. I move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Appropriations on 2018 Appropriation Bill. I so move.
Senator Manuel Polka.
Mr. President, Senator Polka Emmanuel Bayelso Central. Rise to second the motion ably moved by the Chairman of Appropriation. I so second, Mr. President.
The much awaited debate on the 2018 appropriation bill is now on. Senators are about to deliberate on the budget proposal.
Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Danjuma Goje, kindly present your report.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I hereby present the report of the Senate Committee on Operations on 2018 Appropriation Bill. The 2018 budget was presented and laid before a joint sitting of the National Assembly on Tuesday, 7th November 2017, by the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria,
Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. The budget has the objective of delivering a 3-year, that's the 2018-20 Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP. The presentation by Mr. President marked the first reading of the 2018 Appropriation Bill. The bill contained the estimates of revenue and expenditure totaling 8,612,236,953,214 naira and was made up of the following: statutory transfer 456,458,664,074 naira. Debt service 2,335,365,699 naira. Recurrent non-debt expenditure 3,494,277,820,219 naira. Contribution to development fund for the capital expenditure 2,407,665,113,222 naira. I go to the revenue projection on page 3. In processing the 2018 Appropriation Bill, the committee premised expenditure on the following key revenue assumptions. A. Oil benchmark, $51 per barrel. Crude oil production, 2.3 million barrels per day. Exchange rate, 205 naira to US dollars, the dollar. The 2018 proposals had projected an oil price benchmark at $45 crude oil production at 2.3 million barrels per day and based on a exchange rate of 305 to US dollar. Highlights of the 2018 Appropriation Bill. The 2018 Appropriation Bill as worked on contains the following highlights. 1. Aggregate expenditure 9,120,334,908,225 naira. Statutory transfers 530,420,368,624. 3. Debt service 2,203,835,365,699 naira. Recurrent expenditure 3,512,677,902,077 naira. Capital expenditure 2,873,400,351,825 naira. Fiscal deficit 1,954,903,775 naira. Deficit to GDP minus 1.73%. Special intervention as a result of increase in oil price benchmark. It will be recalled that the executive came with a benchmark of $45 per barrel, and in consultation with the executive and in compliance with the decision of this Senate, the benchmark was raised to $51 per barrel. That's an increase of $6 per barrel. Therefore, it is natural that the aggregate expenditure will increase. That's why the press was reporting an increase by National Assembly. But this increase of $6 was done in close and full consultation with the executive. And this additional money was applied to some critical areas, some of which are the following. One, the deficit was reduced by 50.88 billion naira. 46.72 billion naira was applied to security. And for the first time, the National Assembly, in consultation with the executive, decided to implement the National Health Act, which provides that at least 1% of the amount in the Consolidation Revenue Fund should be devoted to health services. And as a result of this commitment to implement this act, in order to work in full collaboration with our foreign donors, the National Assembly, in coordination with the executive, decided to set aside 57.1 billion naira for the implementation of this Health Act. 4, 106.5 billion naira from this additional money was applied to the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing, as again in full consultation with the executive. For education, particularly for the 12 newly established universities, which are having difficulty in getting accreditation because of lack of basic facilities, and the problem of meal subsidy in our university schools, the sum of 15.7 billion naira was set aside for that purpose, to enable these 12 universities have very successful takeoff and get accredited by the NUC. 6, the judiciary, in compliance with their cry for additional funds, were given additional 10 billion naira. And finally, but not the only one, among others, the NDDC, now the Data Development Commission, is being owed huge sum of money, almost $1 trillion, by the federal government, in order to alleviate and reduce the suffering of that corporation, in order to stabilize and get peace and security in Niger Delta. The National Assembly, in consultation with the executive again, set aside 44.2 billion naira to NDDC. Other important features of the bill are contained in the attached details, which include projects and programs in other priority areas of the economy. These and other than not mentioned accounted for the increase of the budget from 8.6 trillion to 9.1 trillion as a result of the increase in the benchmark from $45 to $51. I want to emphasize this thing was done in collaboration with the executive in the interest of the development of this country. Recommendation. Given that due consideration has been given to the preparation of the 2018 appropriation bill, the committee recommends the consideration and approval of the bill for an act to authorize the issuance from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 9 trillion 120,334,908,225 naira. Only, of which 530,421,368,664 naira is for statutory transfers, while 2,203,835,365,699 naira only is for debt service, of which 190 billion naira only is for sinking fund for maturing loans. 3,512,677,902,077 naira is for the current non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 2,873,400,331,825 naira is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure, exclusive of capital expenditure and statutory transfers for the year ending 31st December 2018 as contained in this attached schedule, or as the case may be as per the schedule. It's not necessarily 31st December. Everybody is supposed to run for 12 months. It's there in the main schedule. Concluding, on behalf of the Operation Committee, we wish to thank the Senate President and the entire leadership of the Senate for the support given to the committee. We also appreciate the support of the Finance Committee and the cooperation and understanding of all subcommittees of the Operation Committee. We also wish to seize the opportunity to thank the entire Nigerian public for their patience, including the media, civil society organizations, and all other stakeholders. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Ahmed Sani.
Mr. President, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion ably moved by distinguished Senator Danguji Mogoje for this hallowed chamber to consider and approve this budget. He has given us the details, the breakdown, and the information that this budget is going to run 12 calendar months. I think we should approve this budget since we have taken a long time from December to May to scrutinize and make sure that everything that is supposed to be taken care of has been taken care of. I think this is a budget of hope, the budget of progress, and I so second Your Excellency.
Senator Bintamasi.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Inasmuch as I support the report as ably moved by the chairman, I just needed to get some certain clarifications on page 4, item number 5, that talked about special intervention as a result of increase in oil price benchmarks. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, if you can refresh your memory, some weeks ago when the chairman on public account made mention about some certain funds that is needed as an intervention on the oil subsidy. I was thinking if it has been captured in the special intervention, just a clarification, because at that point in time we needed to get a clarification where funds of government should be remitted into the consolidated revenue account without it being used without the approval of the Senate. But with this special intervention, I thought it should have been captured so that we won't have that reoccurrence again. Just a clarification, sir. But I want to appreciate the committee and the chair of doing a very wonderful job. Thank you.
Senator Goji, you want to respond to that quickly?
I want to respond, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. We didn't include the issue of subsidy because the amount is huge. It's in trillions. And because we are aware that there may be supplementary budget coming on, we decided to put it aside. Don't forget that Mr. President wrote to this chamber requesting for approval for the expenditure of $406 million for 12 Sukarno. And he requested that it should be included in this budget. But because of the size of the amount, we assume that it should come under supplementary. So the issue of subsidy may likely come in the supplementary if the executive and the Senate do decide. Thank you.
Senator James Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected colleagues, James Manager, Delta South. Mr. President, I want to sincerely thank the chairman of chairmen, the Excellency Senator Danju Magoje, and his team, and all those who work with him, civil servants, everybody, for a very thorough job done over the period. Mr. President, mine is just to emphasize the point that Danju Magoje, while presenting the budget, has told all of us and all Nigerians the reason or reasons for the increment. And this, in my humble view, is very significant. He has told us why there was an increment from 8-point-something trillion to 9-point-something trillion. In very clear terms, Mr. President, very clear terms. And whatever they did, it was in due consultation with the executive. Everybody was aware of this increment, and how to spend the increment is also highlighted. It is very clear. And this, in my humble view, is very, very significant. And it is there, contained in the papers. So let the public be aware. Let all Nigerians be aware of why the increment and what to do with the increment. This is very significant, Mr. President, and I want to sincerely thank you for this clarification. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity.
Page 4, the elder.
Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. My own is first of all to thank the Appropriation Committee for this wonderful job. But sir, we are in a democracy, and I have always said it, that in democracy, it is always a recurrent suspicion whereby more than half the people will be right more than half the time. If you look at the recital, Mr. President, it is very important for the records, because some of us may not be here next time. And our grandchildren may pick this thing in the dustbin and begin to make comments that may be either kind or unkind to some of us. And that's why this recital is very, very important. My colleagues will remember that this budget was presented precisely in November 2017 after we resolved in this chamber, after we resolved in this chamber to postpone our leave, despite some grumbling from some senators that they have already made their travel arrangement. But we bent backward, to stay behind and receive this budget. Before we proceeded, the principal officers of the Senate and the House of Representatives met, and the distinguished Deputy Senate President was charged with the responsibility of bringing out a timetable that will culminate in the passing of this budget by the 29th day, not later than 29th day of January. All of you are there. And all efforts to get parastatals and MDAs and whatever to assist this National Assembly to meet that deadline prove abortive. I think it was in March that again we met, reviewed the timetable, and resolved that the Senate President and the Speaker should meet Mr. President and register our frustration. All this while, the public has been awash or have been misled into believing that the National Assembly was the one sitting on this budget. This recital is very important, man. I urge your listening. And in March, when this chamber and the House of Representatives were represented, Mr. President specifically gave an order to all parastatals and MDAs that have not appeared before the various committees to make themselves available for the purpose of meeting this deadline within 1 week. We met more than 5 times at the leadership level to review, and at each of those meetings, the chairman committee on appropriations, Senator Goje, and that of the House, and chairman of finance of the 2 houses were in attendance. Happily enough, despite Mr. President's order that they must appear within 8 days, about 3 or 4 of them didn't come until after that deadline. But while they were doing this, the public was made to understand, erroneously, or being misled to believe that it was the National Assembly that has been sitting on this budget. The last date, Mr. President and my colleagues in the leadership will remember, when we had the report from the committee, was about 4 days after the deadline given by Mr. President, that the last parastatal appeared. Now, while I commend the executive for taking its time to present the budget as early as possible, I will seize this opportunity, sir, to register this frustration. We may not be here tomorrow, but the Senate will remain. The executive will not be there permanently, but the executive arm of government will remain. And by the grace of God, this country will continue to enjoy democratic governance, irrespective of the peaceful that we are passing through. I find it expedient because, Mr. President, some of us are very, very cautious about what we are going to live in the past. Our records we want a situation where my grandchild will pick the records of this Senate 20 years after I'm in my grave and should not be given the opportunity to call Senator Nala a stupid person. So with the greatest respect, I thank you for giving me this indulgence, and I felt that a day like this, it is important to commend the Appropriation Committee and to put the recital and the records in place so that posterity and history will judge some of us collectively and individually. And I thank you very much for giving me that opportunity.
Senator NTA2Lagos.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I am Senator NTA2Lagos, representing Ogun Central, Ogun State. Today, history is being made in the health sector of Nigeria. We will all recall that in the 7th Assembly, an act was introduced and signed by former President Jonathan in August of 2014, which we refer to as the Health Act of 2014, wherein it was stated that at least 1% of the Consolidated Revenue Fund of Nigeria must be a minimum to be introduced into the health budget so as to encourage our development partners and to ensure that the health sector of Nigeria does not remain the same. I will refer to this budget as a budget of health transformation because history has been made by this 8th Assembly by being the first to introduce this 1% into the budget of Nigeria. Unfortunately, we don't clap in the Senate. It deserves a real clapping for the members of this 8th Assembly. The implication of this 1% is that a minimum of 3,000 Nigerians in each local government in Nigeria, vulnerable Nigerians, their health will be paid for in all the primary health centers of the country. Also, the issue of these strike actions that we're having in Delhi, it will not be a popular thing anymore, because the primary health centers will have enough money to continue running, to give basic health services to all our citizens, despite any strike we may be having in our teaching hospitals. The teaching hospitals today are being run by as if they are primary health centers. That's why we are feeling the effect of all these strikes, because that's the first port of call of Nigerians when they have malaria and simple health issues. Also, the issue of our youth corpers that keep on falling into wrong hands in the medical centers will now be a thing of the past, as all the 300,000 Nigerians that offer their services in the youth corps will now be covered by health insurance because of this, our introduction of 1%. So I believe if there's any achievement for this budget presentation, it is the health sector, and I want to thank Mr. President. I believe by his profession as a medical practitioner, just like me, we do not have a problem trying to convince ourselves and to convince our colleagues that health is wealth, and all other areas of the budget, without human beings that are healthy, we cannot operate them. So I thank my colleagues, and I thank Mr. President, and also I thank the Speaker of the House of Representatives for cooperating with the National Assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator NTA2Lagos. Senator Samegu.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I remain Senator Sam Egu, representing Ebonyi North Senatorial District. Mr. President, again, we are passing the budget 5 months into the year, almost half year, to the implementation of the budget. And this has been a recurring decimal. And I think that if we stay here and complain and lament about our frustration in this regard and do not do something concrete, the same thing may happen again next year. I know as a chairman of a committee, we observed the inability of ministers and director generals of agencies in appearing to defend their budgets, despite efforts made by the leadership of the National Assembly to make the various committees meet the deadline. I therefore wish to suggest, Mr. President, if it is possible, let the leadership engage the executive by way of making sure that when we put our own timetable for passing the budget, the executive, possibly through the Secretary of Federal Government, should come up with a policy or a directive that no minister or head of agency should travel outside the country within that period, so that together we work in unison and make sure that we meet the deadline and achieve our desired goal. Because what we have seen is that each time you call a minister or a DG, say he has traveled outside the country. I wonder when traveling outside the country is more important than the budget of the ministry. If they are made to stay within that period and meet with the National Assembly members in defending the individual budget of their ministries, I think we will not have this problem. If we don't do that, I want to say that this issue will become a recurring decimal. I so submit, Mr. President.
Senator Barrow. Thank you, Mr. President.
I am Barrow Jibrin, I represent Kano North. Mr. President, let me first of all commend the leadership of the Senate and the House of Representatives, in particular, the Committee on Appropriations and the entire members of the National Assembly for putting together this year's budget. Mr. President, this is the best budget ever produced in the life of this assembly. Very thorough and well done. It can be seen from the packaging, the finishing of the job, the budgetary process. Well packaged, look at it, very fresh, and it has never been done this way before. And the report is so elaborate and very, very transparent. Very, very transparent, stating all facts that everyone needs to know in the whole of the budgetary process. Of particular, Mr. President, is the intervention that has been done to the tertiary education system in this country. You may recall that 12 universities were established in last regime, and they were left unattended to. In fact, they look like glorified secondary schools. Glorified secondary schools. But now, this assembly, this Senate, Mr. President, has intervened by giving the necessary support to these institutions. Mr. President, you've done a wonderful job through your leadership. I want to commend again the job that has been done in this year's budget. And I'm sure this will go to it will go a long way in helping our tertiary education system in this country. Thank you.
Senator Utazi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Chukwuka Utazi and I represent the good people of Enugu State. Mr. President, I want to thank this very important committee on appropriation, chaired by no less a person as our own most distinguished Senator Danjuma Goje, and his team of wise men that tinkered with all the papers that came from the subcommittees, worked tirelessly with an unwilling MDAs that are now ready to come and defend their budget. Mr. President, in front of the House of this National Assembly, both sides, you see white billboard, red alert, posted both sides, all sides, and warning that the National Assembly delaying of this 2018 budget that it has consequences that we are delaying. Every day you have people who are rented to go on air, who sit down there, armchair critics, who just sit down there, continue talking what they don't understand. Armchair consultants on subjects and topics they don't even know, trying to blackmail the National Assembly, and that we are delaying unnecessarily this budget. Mr. President, I want to say that National Assembly has been misrepresented, misunderstood, and blackmailed. And I feel, Mr. President, that with the passage of this bill, appropriation bill today, that I am making a recommendation that we have to step up our acts in terms of giving the other side of the National Assembly. We are not adequately reported. The activity of this National Assembly is not adequately reported. We are misunderstood. While we are trying to defend the society, do the thorough job, call people to come every day, beg them to come for defense. Nobody is ready to come. But outside there, the armchair critics are there just telling stories. We don't want to pass the budget. Not knowing that budget making is a process. They don't understand it. So I'm saying, Mr. President, as the chairman of the National Assembly, I'm recommending that we have to have a plan how we will make timetable, get the people who are supposed to be informed on televisions, work out to all the channels where we get there as a matter of routine to inform the public about what we are doing here. If we wait for the people out there to go and do it for us, nobody is going to do it. But the people who have pitted themselves against this assembly are paying from their pockets, spending money just to blackmail us. And we just take it for granted. We just come here, do our job, and go home. Convince yourself and conscious that you have done your job. But the society does not understand what you are doing for them. So, and I feel that if we don't take it upon ourselves here to go out and get out there, it's not just enough. Sabia Abubakar, I think he has disappeared. Is he here somewhere there? He's over there. It's not just enough to just get there and 2-3 minutes and disappear. It's not enough. As far as I'm concerned, it's not enough. We have to do more than what Sabia Abubakar is doing to get things done, because we are misrepresented and misunderstood. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Senator Nkwi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. I think I will first of all not be fair if I don't join my earlier colleagues who have expressed their satisfaction on the time taken by the very able Committee on Appropriation to arrive where they have arrived today. Mr. President, I think I would not want to repeat, but by way of very special observation, Mr. President, the indicated numbers, if we trace from page 6 under recurrent items, the committee has given us a breakdown down up to from page 6 to around page 8. And on page 8, other service under service-wide votes, item 73 to 90 has been indicated clearly. By way of observation, Mr. President, and by way of emphasis
to the electric sector is all about and what it intends to achieve. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the opportunity to point this out.
Senator Shafa.
Your Excellency, thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, Senator Benga Shafar, representing Lagos East Senatorial District. And Mr. President, what I have observed and what I presently appreciate about this 2018 budget is the fact that the Buhari administration has been able to stay focused. If you take a peep into the nitty-gritty of the budget, has decided that, well, ongoing projects must be finished. And when we look at the three critical areas, that is power, works, and rail. If I may just run through some of the projects, Nigerians will know that the 2018 budget is not only about a particular section of the country. It goes into the nooks and corners of all the areas that we can call the state of Nigeria. Now, for instance, under power on Ibadan Expressway, which is going to be completed before the end of next year, the major lighting will be completed together with the roads. Equally, the Mambila hydropower plant is on course. The transmission lines and substations on that route is on course in the 2018 budget. Rural electrification access into all the universities.
Distinguished Senator Ashafa, I think we're all going as if we are doing second reading. Honestly, otherwise I'm sure everybody will now want to open up this discussion like a second reading discussion. With all due respect, let you yield to leader and let it allow us to go into the Committee of Supply and move forward. Otherwise, we will go, once you finish now, others will now, and we enter to a second reading debate.
In conclusion, Mr. President, I want to appreciate, the committee on appropriation for bringing it to bear and for us to be resolute in doing the consideration today and passing the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I want to thank you for giving me this privilege. I want to...
Your mic.
He knew he's not there.
I want to thank the chairman and committee members of our committee on appropriations. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, all of us here and the executive arm of government would have loved to have a budget passed sometimes at the end of December last year or the early part of January. But that is not to be for so many reasons, and those reasons are now known. Continue to remain focused and do what is right. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the...
Leader, you forgot what I wanted you to really do, which is to move a motion for us to go to the Committee of Supply.
Mr. President, I told you I was going to make my contribution. Having said all this, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate resolves into Committee of Supply to consider the report of the Appropriations Committee. Thank you very much. I'm really very, very grateful.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I do know that the Senate leader, after a very long tweeting and winding speech, finally came to the reality that there is need for us to go into Committee of Supply to consider the budget 2018. But permit me to use this opportunity of seconding this motion. Seconding this motion to clarify a few issues. The first is that the Senate leader, while speaking, went into the issue of the implementation of the budget of 2017. Mr. President,
okay, point of order, Leader. Yes, Leader.
Order 53-4, and with their permission I will read. A senator must confine, his observations to the subjects under discussion and may not introduce matter irrelevant thereto. Mr. President, I move a motion that this Senate resolves into Committee of Supply. All that is required of the opposition leader, all that is required of the opposition leader, minority leader. Minority leader. Yes. All that is required is to second the motion and not to say any other thing. So, Mr. President, please.
Leader, I've heard you. Out of respect for my leader, your point of order is noted. And minority leader, I hope, as you say, that you would show us that you are truly a minority leader in being a stickler for the rules of the chamber.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, thank you for the protection.
Yes.
I rise to say that yes, indeed, the Senate leader had spoken very well, and finally came to the issue of the need for us to resolve into Committee of Supply. But I said before I second that motion, sir, I want to take the privilege of this opportunity to just say that yes, indeed, a budget is good, but a budget is just an estimate. implementation of the budget is what will put food on the tables of Nigerians. And I would like to caution, sir, that yes, whilst we are going to pass the budget of 2018, there is need for Nigerians to feel the impact of the budget after we are passing. For instance, the Senate leader mentioned the second Niger bridge. I don't know when last he passed through the second Niger bridge to ascertain the percentage. And Mr. President, I need to say that I want him to also put a percentage on the implementation of the road between Akwa Ibom, between Aba, and Calabar, which was in the 2017 budget, which not even a chip of sand has been placed on the road. And Mr. President, the reason for that, I must say, is that there is need for us to review this Public Procurement Act, because most of the time we are here talking about budget 12 months. It takes about 9 to 10 months for us to pass through the Procurement Act to even go down to go and give one contract. So when you pass a budget in May, and then the Procurement Act takes over 10 months before it gets to a point of going to give the contract, when are we going to take 2 months to implement the project? So what has happened now in Nigeria is that yes, the government may have the best of intentions, the Senate may have the best of intentions, the National Assembly may mean well, but most times the budget implementation is frustrated. We come in year after year, we pass budget, and the budget gets lapsed even before the point of award of contract. I don't know where he got the 70% from, but I come from Akwa Ibom State, and I haven't seen a chip of sand on the road after we pass the budget, putting billions to pass through from Aba all the way to Calabar.
So you now hereby second. It
is on that note, sir, that I want to say that yes, indeed, we mean well, the Senate means well, the National Assembly means well, implementation definitely will mean well when we see it, but I second the motion that we go into Committee of Supply to look at this budget.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that we resolve Committee of Supply, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it.
On to the services of the Nigerian Television Authority, reaching you live from the National Assembly, where we are bringing to you deliberations on the consideration of 2018 budget proposals as presented by the Senate Committee on Appropriation. Currently, the Senate is dissolving into Committee of Supply to consider the budget estimate, which is put at more than 9.1 trillion naira, raised from previous submission of the executive, which was 8.6 trillion naira.
Distinguished colleagues, let me put the question Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that Schedule A, that is statutory transfer, sum of 530 billion 421 million 368,624 for the head of statutory transfers, that is National Judicial Council, Niger Delta Development Commission, part payment to NDDC outstanding liabilities on FGN, Universal Basic Education, National Assembly, Public Complaints Commission, INEC, National Human Rights Commission, stand part of the Schedule A. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Schedule B, that the sum of 2,203,835,365,699 for the head debt service, which has domestic debt, foreign debt, sinking fund to retire maturing loans, stands part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Schedule C, recurrent non-debt expenditure, that the sum of 2,347,351,329,049 naira for the head of executive, that is Presidency, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, Ministry of Interior, Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Auditor General for the Federation, Ministry of Communication Technology, Office of the National Security Advisor, Infrastructure Concessionary Regulatory Commission, Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Federal Ministry of Finance, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, Federal Ministry of Transportation, Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, Ministry of Budget and National Planning, National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Federal Ministry of Water Resources, Federal Ministry of Justice, Independent Corrupt Practices and Related Offences Commission, Federal Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, Federal Ministry of Education, Federal Ministry of Health, Federal Ministry of Environment, Federal National Population Commission, stands part of the executive subtotal schedule. Those in support say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the sum of 14,602,643,641 naira for the head of federal executive bodies, that is Code of Conduct Bureau, Code of Conduct Tribunal, Federal Character Commission, Federal Civil Service Commission, Police Service Commission, Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, stand as part of the schedule of federal executive bodies. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the sum of 198,950,173,668 for service-wide votes and pension expenditure item, pension and gratuities. That is, Office of the Head of Civil Service, civilian pension, gratuities, pension, benefits of retired heads of service and department militaries, military pensions and gratuities, pensions, 2017 expected retirees, death benefits, administrative charges, 2017 verification exercise, pension running cost, police pension and gratuities, pension, customs, immigration and prisons pension office, pension, universities pension including arrears, pension, parastatals pension and railways pension, pre-1996 Nigeria Railway Corporation pension, Department of State Security pension including arrears, Nigeria Intelligence Agency pension dependents benefits, NELMCO pensions arrears, service-wide votes pension, arrears of pension liabilities, arrears of 33% in increase in pension rates, group life insurance for all MDAs including DSS, insurance of sensitive assets, corpus plus administrative monitoring, payment of outstanding debts benefit to civil servants and police. Those in favor that these subhead of service-wide vote and pension expenditure items, pension and gratuities stands as part of the schedule. Those in support say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the sum of 908,773,755,719 for head of other service-wide votes. That is public service wage.
That before the court, he went further to say that punishment for the charges against the third defendant, Snirodino Melaye, on alleged conspiracy and possession of illegal firearms carries maximum of 10 years imprisonment, not too weighty to deny him bail as he is presumed innocent at this stage. Besides, Snirodino Melaye has no antecedent of dealing in illegal firearms, nor track record of jumping bail, thus granting him bail in the sum of 10 million naira and a surety of like sum. Councils reacted to the ruling.
The judiciary remains the last hope of the common man and common woman. Judiciary again today has lived up to its expectation. On our part, we want to get the ruling, study it, and decide on the next step of action.
Having secured the bail, Senator Dino Melaye, along with 2 other suspects, are expected to appear before the magistrate court in Lokoja on the 11th of June this year. In Lokoja, Amos Ranyebe, NTA News. At a time when students are losing interest in science and technology subjects like mathematics, a Nigerian student has made the nation proud by carting away medallions, both local and international competitions. These students and management of Nigeria Tulip International College came to present these awards to the Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Ogbonnaya Onu, who urged Nigerians, especially the younger ones, to embrace science and technology. Chimdima Ndubisi reports.
14-year-old Odedairo Oluwaferomi, who represented Nigeria at the World Mathematics Competition held in Thailand, won a bronze medal. That was after taking first position and gold medal at the American and National Mathematics competitions. The Minister of Science and Technology noted that these types of competitions on a core science and technology subject are important in sharpening the skills and tuning interest of the younger ones who form the bulk of the country's population in science, technology and innovation. A sector that holds the key to converting the country's abundant natural resources to needed manufactured goods and services, which will increase foreign earnings and create more jobs.
The potential is tremendous in terms of human resource, and even if they start small, gradually, those enterprises will keep growing, and that's how you're going to have medium and even large-scale enterprises. And this is very important for us because our President Muhammadu Buhari, is committed to making sure that all Nigerians who want to work find that work.
The awards are of great importance. It's going to be a source of inspiration for many other students in Nigeria, so they will see that actually it is very possible if they study hard.
The minister encouraged other schools to expose their students to competitions like this in order to showcase their knowledge and talents. In Abuja, Chimdema Ndubisi, NTA News.
Despite several interventions from government, NGOs and international donors to displace victims of insurgency in the northeast, the challenge of access to adequate food seems to linger in the camps. But these donors are not giving up on the IDPs, just as the Food and Agriculture Organization has distributed fresh food voucher to 3,500 households in 3 major IDP camps in Maiduguri and communities in Kondoga, Borno State. Justin Bemwi, who witnessed the distribution, now reports.
She is Hawa Haman Ali, a mother of 15. She tells me she was a local government staff of the primary healthcare clinic in Goza, Borno State, northeast Nigeria. This was before the insurgency sent her packing, and now she finds herself in this Bakassi IDP camp in Maiduguri town of Borno. Just like other displaced persons in the various camps, Hawa Ali's family largely depends on interventions of different sorts. This time, the Food and Agriculture Organization and other implementing partners have reached out to the 3 major IDP camps in Maiduguri through its Fresh Food Voucher Scheme, which aims to facilitate access to fresh and diversified food items for vulnerable IDPs in the camps in order to improve their food nutrition security. Beneficiaries, who were mostly women-headed households from the camps visited, Bakassi, El Meskin and Dalori, all had a reason to smile for this intervention.